Morning all. Welcome to the second edition of the Defence Industry Insights Growing Your Business in the Defence Industry webinars. My name is Judy Dennison and I'm the manager of the Defence Industry Facilitation Team for the Centre of Defence Industry Capability, commonly known as the CDIC. The CDIC was launched in 2016 with its purpose to strengthen the capability of Australian businesses to meet defence requirements. We do this by building a very strong, sustainable, secure and globally competitive industry base, facilitating connections and engagements across defence and the Australian defence industry. The CDIC provides free advisory services and facilitation services. We also provide a series of grant programs and we provide some export support through our global supply chain. Today, I'd like to welcome on behalf of the CDIC the guest speakers that we have. We have Mr. David Brinton, who's the Executive Director, Commercial Policy and Practice for Commercial Function from the Capability Acquisition and Sustainment Group. We have Tiffany Watkins, a Defence Business Advisor from the CDIC, and we have our question and answer moderator, Alison Everett, who's a Defence Industry Facilitator located in Canberra. Whilst you have a think about what it is that perhaps you might want to see in some of the future webinars, I'd like to tell you just a little bit more about the CDIC. So we're here to support you, SMEs keen to get into the defence industry area. How do we do that? We help you navigate the defence marketplace, and we do that through our national network of defence industry facilitators and advisors. We enable you to connect with other businesses as well as defence. We can advise you how to improve your competitiveness and to access both domestic and global markets. And we can provide you some grants that's going to help you invest in some of the defence-related capabilities that you're keen to actually expand on. We do understand the barriers that you do face, and we also understand that defence itself is quite a complex organisation. And we can help you understand where it is best for you to invest both your time and some of your funding in order to grow your business within the defence sector. As you can imagine, we always have a number of documents that lay out some of the strategic direction. These two I certainly can highly recommend, the Defence White Paper and the Defence Industry Policy Statement. So the White Paper sets out that comprehensive plan for Australia's defence. And the Defence Industry Policy Statement has a focus on a stronger, more strategic partnership and closer alignment between defence and industry in order for defence to be able to meet its objectives. There are some other useful documents that you can find on the CDIC website, including the Integrated Investment Program, the Export Strategy, the Defence Policy for Industry Participation, and the newly released Defence Force Structure Plan. Before we get into it, I think it's really important for us to actually understand exactly where industry fits in. We're going to be talking about the capability life cycle, and it's the process of the introduction, sustainment, upgrade and responsible replacement of defence capability. You may have heard of a thing called the fundamental input into capability, or the FIX. Defence capability is very, very key for defence to be able to go out and achieve its objectives, as we said, and industry is a key part. Other areas that are also very, very key is the facilities and training areas, collective training, personnel, supplies and support. Those particular areas are what we call the key enablers. And since basically the Defence White Paper came out, what we have noticed is that all of those particular areas are key to the major programs going forward. So whilst you may have industry that is very, very hooked on things like manufacture, capability development, the other areas are absolutely important as far as the achievement of us actually getting our major programs across the line. So how can you get involved? You can get involved by assessing if your business is a good fit for the defence industry space, assessing your alignment between your business capabilities and defence procurement. This will help you work out where to focus your particular business development effort. Are you defence ready? Usually your business needs a bit of a history of strong supply, performance and an appropriate quality assurance program, among other things. Keep in mind that you may need to improve your business capabilities in specific areas in order to meet defence requirements. And you need to take a long-term view on business growth. Developing the necessary service offerings, skilling, tooling, accreditations, certifications and partnerships definitely do take some time. And you need to have a look at how it is that you can cover those particular areas in order to maximise your success and your opportunities. But we're actually going to start looking at the capability life cycle. So at the centre of this particular webinar, the CLC, it's important for you to understand what this is so that you can identify where there are some of the appropriate access points for your business. It is a 4-phase risk-based decision-making process. And alongside of that, we also have 3 decision gates, but we'll have a chat about the phases first. The strategic concepts phase starts to look at identifying the capability needs that defence need to be able to put into service in order for us to achieve those particular objectives. Phase 2 is risk mitigation and requirements. This is where we decide and define what the capability solutions actually are. Phase 3 is the acquisition phase. This is where we acquire the capability and we start introducing it into service. Phase 4 supports the capability throughout its particular life cycle. Now, this includes the key enablers right up until disposal. Now, if you've been around at Defence for as long as I have, you would have heard of things like first pass approval, second pass approval. Those have gone, but they have been replaced by Gate 0, Gate 1 and Gate 2. So Gate 0, the decision point. We've decided to have a little look at something. Have a look at through the strategic concepts. It's the decision point. Are we going to progress with that particular proposal? Gate 1, and not everything goes through to Gate 1, is selecting that specific option and then deciding to progress to the Gate 2 area. And Gate 2 is the government's decision to acquire a fully defined and costed capability. Let's have a little look at phase 1, the strategic concept phase. This is where we identify the capability needs, identify current forecast or potential capability gaps. We develop capability options, and this is the basis for the capability managers to actually develop the Gate 0 submission. Throughout this particular area, there are several opportunities as far as industry is concerned. This tends to centre around the consultative services, understanding where the innovation and concepts might be able to come in that's going to help shape the strategic phase, and understanding where your capability may fit within some of the potential supply chain opportunities. So this is the opportunity for SMEs to have a look and think, okay, so they're looking at perhaps building a submarine, maybe a little bit down track, we can start looking at how it is that we can position our business in order to take advantage of the opportunities when they come through. If you have any issues as far as that's concerned, of course, you can always contact the CDIC or go straight through to our particular website, which is on the screen, as you can see there. So phase 2, the risk mitigation area, risk mitigation and requirements. This is where we sit there and identify and mitigate some of the risks in us going forward as far as the proposal is concerned. It's a full definition of requirements, and this is where we actually bring the fundamental input into capabilities into it. So those FICs, as we call them, need to actually be incorporated into a raft of documentation that includes the capability development documentation, CDDs, which includes things like function and performance specifications, operational concept documentation, test concept documentation, amongst others. This is also where, for some of the complex ones, we actually have to start looking at Gate 1 approval. So it's the government's decision to select a specific option or options. At this stage, though, it needs to be pointed out that this is not a commitment by government for acquisition at this stage. As far as the industry opportunities are concerned, we start looking at things like requests for information, expressions of interest, and for some of the complex programs, both Defence and the Defence Prime contractors are definitely going to be reaching out to get some input from Australian SMEs. There is also still that innovation piece that comes in here as well, bearing in mind that certainly for some of the complex programs that we actually have, there is some long lead-in times, certainly that will allow for some innovative solutions to come forward. Looking at phase 3, phase 3 is the acquisition stage. So a good analogy here is building a house. So you've got the permission from the bank, you've bought your property, now you have to sit there and start to figure out how you're going to build the house. So you've been given the go-ahead, you have the money, now you've got to start preparing everything for that. Now, certainly for the successful tenderer, there is a significant amount of groundwork that will need to be looked at as far as all aspects of the program, bearing in mind, as I said, that from those fundamental inputs into capability, everything needs to be taken into consideration. So this might be continuing of design and prototype activity. It could be having a look at the workforce that's going to be required from the prime and certainly from the SME perspective. Having a look at the facilities, what facilities need to be built, what other areas need to be built. It might include things like machining shops, painting areas, those types of things really need to be looked at. Having a look at the supply chain, so development of the supply chain goes forward in this particular area, and establishing processes and procedures. This is also the opportunity for businesses to become involved, certainly for supply of some long lead orders, but you need to understand that it's definitely a phased industry engagement. So as those requirements start to filter through, there'll be a phase in as far as the orders and the work packages that are going to be on offer. Certainly from prototyping as well. So industry may be asked to do some prototyping as they start moving into the manufacturing area. And phase 4, so long-term subcontracting opportunities are available here through industry. There are sustainment supply chains, and as we start looking at things like obsolescence management and ongoing through-life support, you'll be asked to be providing things like technology upgrades, some modifications, sustainment of some of the legacy platforms, and these opportunities will run through the disposal phase. It is really important that industry do understand that at this particular phase, the long-term subcontracting opportunities are there, and you can certainly find out a little bit more about those when we start having a look at some of the programs that fit into this particular area. So certainly your best source of information for the future programs that we have is through the Integrated Investment Program. This is where you can start to plan your access into these supply chain opportunities that may be coming up and understand where your capability may fit into that particular area. The other place that you might want to also have a look at is on the Defence website. We actually have a lot of our sustainment programs that are there for you to have to check out. So whilst the Integrated Investment Plan certainly looks at some of the future opportunities, some of the opportunities that are available to you right now from a sustainment perspective, you can actually source through the Defence website. So let's have a look at some of the programs that we actually have. So we have Collins Sustainment, which is the in-service and disposal, C5000, which is the Future Frigate Program, which is run by BAE Systems within acquisition. We have the Land 400 Phase 3 area that's right at the moment within the risk mitigation and the requirements. And certainly another key enabler that we actually have is, and this is at pre-gate 0, so we're having a look at the strategic concepts and what it is that we need to do, is the planning for the retender of the base services contracting. So that's the massive estate and infrastructure group program that looks at certainly the space services, and that is currently, as I said, in the strategic planning area at pre-gate 0. So having a look at Land 400 Phase 3, what we're looking at is the purchase of up to 450 fighting vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, mounted close combat capability, and it's the manoeuvre capability. Acknowledging that we are down to the 2 selected tenderers at this stage. We have Rheinmetall Defence Australia and we have Hanwha Defence. The contact details for industry, if you would like to be perhaps submit your name as an expression of interest, certainly send an email through to Neil Fitzpatrick from Rheinmetall and to Millie Keating through Hanwha Defence. C5000. So C5000 is our Future Frigate program. On the 29th of June in 2018, the Australian Government announced BAE Systems was selected as a preferred tenderer to deliver 9 frigates to the Royal Australian Navy, and that BAE Systems would acquire ASC. Since then, progress has been rapid. Combat Systems Integration Partners, Lockheed Martin Australia and Saab Australia, have been selected to partner with BAE Systems Australia to deliver the combat system integration on the frigates. Program mobilisation and design activities are well underway, including preparation for prototyping to commence in 2020 before steel is actually cut on the first frigate in 2022. To date, more than 900 suppliers from across Australia have registered through the Industry Capability Network to supply into the Hunter program. And that is your best bet to get in, is through the ICN website. ASC Supply Chain Portal for registration of interest, very specifically for the sustainment opportunity that's presented with the Collins-class submarine. You can also email Mr. Michael Tramaco, who's the procurement manager for ASC, and bearing in mind that we are going to have to continue to use the Collins submarine right up until planned withdrawal date of 2030. So there are 10 years of opportunities there for industry to be able to supply through for the sustainment of this fairly pivotal asset. Okay, ICN Gateway. So with the ICN Gateway, one of the areas to look at is, and certainly one of the good things about the ICN Gateway, is the fact that it's free for most, for industry to actually register their interest on there. Many defence primes will have work packages that are on that particular website, and you can go through and identify those areas that you would actually like to push in an expression of interest for. BAE Systems itself, for the future frigate, has got all of their work packages on there, and you can definitely put in an expression of interest through the ICN Gateway. On top of that, most of the defence primes themselves also do have the ability for you to put in your particular expression of interest and actually put your name down to be considered as a supplier within that area. Please feel free to go to these particular ones. So we're looking at things like the offshore patrol vessels with Lursen. We're looking at the future submarine with Naval Group. Hanwha itself, as we've said, is actually looking at certainly Land 400 Phase 3, as is Rheinmetall Defence, and BAE Systems very specifically around C5000. Please ensure that you express your interest on those particular websites as well. On top of that, we have the Oz Tender website. It is pivotal that you make sure that you have registered to receive when Defence come out with an expression of interest or a request for tender. When you do register, please ensure that you keep your expression broad enough, but you make sure that Department of Defence has actually been selected. Every day then you'll receive an email, and that particular email will provide you with the tenders that have been released for that particular day. On top of that, we also have AIC Plans. So if you're seeking additional opportunities, you can go to the Defence website, as you can see on there, under the public plans, and have a look at some of the public Australian industry capability plans that have been submitted to Defence. They actually do provide you with a little bit more of a roadmap so that you're able to understand exactly what's available to you, and they'll also provide you with some contact details as well for that particular company. Above all, understanding the end user is the men and the women of the Australian Defence Force. It is absolutely vital that the fighting men and women of Australian Defence Force have the best capability. We would like it to be as much locally sourced capability as we possibly can have. When we are either flying at 40,000 feet or we're at 400 feet below the surface doing a patrol on foot, or certainly out there in one of our Bushmasters, we need to make sure that our particular equipment works first time every single time. Defence is a demanding customer. We understand that Defence is a very demanding customer, and we don't apologise for that in any way, shape or form. So getting defence industry ready to be able to meet the challenge that we have from a defence requirements is part of the role that we actually have with the CDIC.